Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And inshallah, everyone is well and in good health, especially in the current situation that we are in, with lockdown for most of us. Just give a minute or two so we're all able to settle down in the class. And maybe there might be some people who are running a bit late. None of us are used to starting on time anyway. Just a reminder for anyone who does come into the classroom, please make sure that you have your microphone muted and also your video switched off prior to entering. And you are able to ask questions or comment throughout the talk. However, if you have a detailed question, please make sure that you ask the question when it's question time, which means towards the end of the session. Even though we do have a 2-hour session, I'm not going to be going on for 2 hours. It's way too long, especially for something like epistemology. So maybe around about the 1 hour, 20-minute mark, I'll stop. Maybe even earlier than that. And then we'll open up the platform for anyone who wants to ask any questions or things like that. So hopefully that's fine with everyone. Towards the end of the presentation, I also have my email that you are able to send your emails or questions to, or comments or criticisms or feedback. And if you and also my mobile number as well, if anyone wants to communicate with me through WhatsApp or Telegram or anything of that sort. When it comes to the methodology of how this course will be presented, seeing that I'm too influenced by my Hausawi background, the approach that I will be using is purely Hausa style back in the course. And therefore the material that I'm going to be using is predominantly material written by our Shia ulama on the topic of the theory of knowledge and epistemology. So if, for example, someone might have a comment in regards to, the direction of the course or things like that, then, understand that this is pretty much because of the particular approach that I've chosen to use. One of the unfortunate things is that we don't have that much material or that many books written on epistemology within the Islamic tradition in English, and therefore whatever material I think would be useful for my brothers and sisters to use throughout this course, I will be sharing via email. So hopefully you'll be able to have some further reading time after the course. in order for you to be able to develop in this field and inshallah benefit as much as possible. One of the things that got me into wanting to use this topic and share it as a course is the fact that we as human beings share that faculty of aql and ta'aqul among all of us. However, more or less, we come to realize that there might be certain issues in how it is that we are dealing with rational topics. We might somehow be misinformed about the methodology that we are using in our approach to reason and intellectual arguments. We might also have an incorrect kind of understanding what truth really is. And therefore, it becomes extremely, extremely difficult for us to ascertain the reality of information and what kind of knowledge we are able to rely on. And the reason why I said Shi'i approach is because, as far as the overall course is concerned, is because there are a lot of things that we see within the Shi'i tradition that need to be addressed, but they need to be addressed sometimes from a theological perspective. Sometimes they need to be addressed from an epistemic level. And sometimes we might come across certain things. We don't really know how to pinpoint where the issue, where the problem is. An example for this would be those who are against rational sciences in the Islamic tradition in general. Those who are, for example, against philosophy or against irfan or against the usage of reason and rationality within the perimeters of the Sharia, where they reject the use of reason as an independent tool in as the sources of legislation. So when it comes to, for example, masadirul tashri' or the sources of legislation, they do not believe that reason has any kind of involvement when it comes to its ability to be able to be used for the realm of shara and fiqh. So I think you know where I'm going to, trying to explain that within our Shi'i understanding, we have different trends, we have different kind of ideological trends, we could say, and it's epistemology that deals with these things. If you have, for example, the Akhbari school, and the Akhbari school only consider the Sunnah as a source of legislation. They don't believe the Quran can be used by the faqih. They certainly don't believe reason can be used by the faqih, nor ijma' as well. Whereas usuli ulama say we have 4 sources of legislation: the Quran, the Sunnah, the Aql, and consensus, ijma'. Or we have another trend called the school of tafkik, that's been around for a short period of time, but they've been extremely influential within the Shia circle by completely rejecting anything to do with reason and rationality in religion. So reason has no involvement whatsoever in the realm of religion. Yes, we understand that there could be some people who say reason is one thing, religion is another thing. We also have people or groups of, or trend of thought that say that Shara is the primary principle, and reason can be used as an intellect, as a tool to kind of like reveal. So the wasila of it being a kashif, something that can reveal and clarify matters related to religion, but in itself doesn't really have any kind of independent value. Then a third type is the type that says, no, these are different categories altogether, and so it has absolutely no involvement. Religion is one thing, intellect is another thing. So, question, when it comes to, for example, me being a Muslim, can I say that I believe in the Quran and I believe in the Sunnah, and that my intellect will be an independent guide within myself, along with the Quran and the Sunnah having that very value that it needs? Or should I say that the intellect is only going to assist me to a certain extent, but the reality is the Quran and the Sunnah only? Or am I going to say the Quran and Sunnah is one thing and intellect is another thing? I'm sure you've come across in this trend of Maktab al-Tafkik, where you've probably seen some who are aggressively hostile towards philosophy, towards irfan, for example, and say that it has absolutely no place in our religion if it doesn't start off with قال الصادق عليه السلام, if it doesn't start off by mentioning that this source of information comes from a verse in the Quran or comes from a Ma'soom alayhi salam, then it's completely rejected. Now, where does the big musibah come? The big musibah comes if this person is not a Shi'i, and therefore the information that they hold must be rejected. So this person, let me give the example of Ibn Sina. Although I personally, along with many others, believe, and of course many ulama as well, believe that Ibn Sina was a Shi'i, but we'll just go along with the argument. How can you read a book or study a book written by a scholar who was a non-Shi'i? Now, whether he was an Ismaili or whether he was a crypto-Ismaili or whether he was a Sunni, how could you do that? You are distancing yourself away from the Ma'sumin alayhum salam. And for you to think that this is going to, somehow get you to the haqq, it's not. It's going to distance you away from the haqq, and then, even worse than that is, matters of irfan and, Rumi doing this or saying this or all these other things. I'm sure most of you have somehow come across these kind of arguments. Which area deals with these kind of topics? It's epistemology. It's finding that reason and intellectual understanding, especially on the level of the theory of knowledge, is in itself the most natural of things that we deal with as human beings. And it has absolute cohesion with everything else we have within our mind, whether it be religious information or information that we've perceived through our senses. And that's why, you know, for example, you've got the contemporary alim Ayatollah Hassan Zada Amuli, who has this book, Burhan, Quran, Irfan, Azham Juda'i Nadarad. The Burhan, which means intellectual arguments, reason, and Quran and Irfan cannot be separated from one another. And of course, that itself is very important for us to look at. And that's why we can see that our ulama, especially those within the realm of intellectual studies, ulum aqliya, they put a lot of emphasis in dealing with these issues. Of course, in many cases, they dealt with it in a subtle way because, you know, ultimately these theories are coming from Shia ulama. Yes, we have those outside of the Shia world who do believe along the same lines. For example, Ahlul Hadith in the Sunni world, they're pretty much similar to Akhbaris, or the Fideists who, you know, completely reject Fideism, completely rejects the involvement of aql and the intellects. So, you know, these are the kind of like things that we will be hopefully, inshallah, addressing. So this long introduction is just so we, you know, set the mind into why these kind of discussions are so important. Now, before I even go on to the next slide, one of the things that we need to address is the very title that I chose, and that is Islamic epistemology. Is that, can that be justified? Do we really have something called Islamic epistemology, or epistemology that's related to the intellect? It's something that is commonly shared by all human beings. You know, how could, if it's that clear and evident, how could it be Islamic? You know, you can't say Islamic maths, or can you? You know, 1 + 1 = 2. You know, it doesn't make any sense for you to say, oh, that's Islamic. Or Islamic logic, for example. Can we say Islamic logic? There's even the argument that says, can we say Islamic philosophy also? Inshallah, we'll deal with that. We'll discuss that. If any of brothers and sisters have any kind of comment regarding this title, whether or not we can say Islamic epistemology, please share your views, inshallah, after our presentation. For those who are interested in further studies and reading, inshallah, as I said, unfortunately, in the Arabic and Farsi language, alhamdulillah, there's good material out there. In the English, not that much. But let me just start with one of, I would say, the most outstanding sources that can be used for epistemology is Allama Tabataba'i's book, Usul Falsafe va Ravesh Realism. And that's, of course, been translated into Arabic twice. by two different translators, أصول الفلسفة والمذهب الواقعي, that has the commentary of Shahid Mutahari Ridwanullah Ta'ala alayh, and it was translated by Sayyid Ammar Abu Raghif. It's 3 volumes, very, very good, goes through most of the maqalat. Another translation is Usus al-Falsafa wal-Madhhab al-Waqi'i, translated by Sheikh Abdul Mun'im al-Khaqani. There's another one, a third one, that has the commentary of Ayatollah Sheikh Ja'far Subhani. That's also useful. We'll come to understand why is it that we're only talking about ulama from this kind of contemporary world. I'll explain that. But another book that's in the Arabic world, in the Farsi world, you've got some good authors, especially Sheikh Hassan Muallimi, very kind of simple Farsi explanation to the topic of Nazariyatul Ma'rifah or Shanakht Shanasi or Ma'rifat Shanasi, and also Hussein Zadeh, Aghay Hussein Zadeh. I have a few of his books. That's one of his books, and that's Sheikh Hassan Muallimi's book. In English, in Farsi also we have, of course, and also in Arabic, the works of Al-Marhum Ayatollah Sheikh Muhammad Taqi Misbah Yazdi. Wonderful books that he has written or has been compiled under his supervision in the area of Ma'rifat Shanasi. In his institute, of course, Imam Khomeini Institute in Qom, some wonderful material has also been provided, readily available for people to read. Lucky for us, his philosophy textbook, which is called Amuzesh Falsafe, in Farsi has been translated into English by Professor Muhammad Liegenhausen. And this has roughly about 10 chapters or 10 lessons on epistemology, from lesson number 11 all the way up to, I think, lesson number 21 or 22. That, fortunately, has been translated into English, called Philosophical Instructions. I have the PDF for that, so hopefully, if anyone's interested, I can send it to you. That would be really, really good for you to read, just only from lesson 11 all the way up to around about lesson 20, 21, 22. If you have access to Shaheed Sayyid Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr's book, Ridwanullah Ta'ala alayh, called Our Philosophy, Falsafatuna, which has been wonderfully translated, very, very good translation. It also has a foreword by Sayyid Hussein Nasr. That is also very useful in epistemology as well. Really, really good book, actually. And other books, hopefully, inshallah, we will mention. By Shahid Mutahari, there's an English book called The Theory of Knowledge, and by some others. Anyway, this is, I think, important for us to always remember that where are we, how can we position the topic of epistemology in the wider map of ulum. We know that ilm is divided into 2 types. We have ulum aqliya and we have ulum naqliya. Ulum aqliya means rational sciences, and ulum naqliya means traditional transmitted sciences. So something that would fall under transmitted sciences would be hadith, would be tafsir, would be history, etc., etc. Something that falls under rational sciences is theology to a certain extent, philosophy, logic, mathematics, and of course, this is the whole list here for rational sciences. In rational sciences, you've got the nadari and you've got the amali. With the nadari, it starts off with al-ulum. Logic is called al-ulum, the mother of sciences. And that's why logic is extremely important to learn. Then we have things like maths and geometry, things to do with, lines and measurements and, Euclid's element and things like that. Then we have tabi'iyat, which is physics, natural physics, tabi'iyat. And then we have what we call ma ba'da tabi'a, that which is beyond physics, or what we call metaphysics. We also refer to it as ilahiyat bil-ma'na al-a'am, then ilahiyat bil-ma'na al-akhas, which is theology. But in metaphysics, that is where we position philosophy. Then we have practical sciences, and practical rational sciences is all about tadbir, management. So we have tadbir al-mudun, the management of towns and cities. And that is tadbir al-mudun, psychics. Thank you, Brother Abbas. Psychic. Yeah, because I'm a psychic today. Sorry about that. Yeah. Alhamdulillah, I've got some brothers here who are more literate than me. Sorry about that spelling mistake. Yeah, what was I saying? Tadbir al-mudun, management of cities. Which ilm deals with that? Siyasatul mudun. Then we have tadbirul manzil. And which science deals with that? How the, for example, as far as management of the house, husband, wife management, son, father, master, slave, siblings, these kind of things. Well, number one, akhlaq, and number two, ahkam. The same with tadbirul mudun, the management of cities. It's also related to politics and also shara as well. Then we have tadbirul nafs, the management of your nafs, and that is how you are able to manage the affairs to do with yourself. Which science deals with this? Akhlaq, or if we want to be more specific, irfan, right? Now, question, where does epistemology fall in all of this? Epistemology comes prior to any of this. Oh, well, here, this is as far as ulum naqliya is concerned, transmitted sciences like wahi, like tafsir, as I said, like ahadith, and like customary laws also. So where does epistemology fall in all of this? Well, we know that epistemology is a branch of philosophy, but which comes first? Is it philosophy first and then epistemology, or not? Well, throughout the history of our ulum, as far as rational sciences are concerned, we didn't really have an independent branch on its own called epistemology. And as I will shortly mention, epistemology isn't, as far as an independent science on its own, doesn't have that long of a history. So in order for us to position it in the wider map of ulum, we need to understand what usage it has. Okay, so bear with me, inshallah, and then we will explain where to locate epistemology. So I've used the word epistemology so many times, and a lot of people who aren't familiar with these kind of sciences probably have no idea what the word is. I don't know if my brothers and sisters prior to signing up, if they needed to Google what epistemology was, but seeing that you've all registered and alhamdulillah participating, it means that you pretty much know what epistemology is. Epistemology is basically the theory of knowledge. The theory of knowledge. How are we able to understand what knowledge is? So epistemology is ilmul ilm, the knowledge of knowledge, the study of knowledge. Along with that, we look into how we are able to justify the knowledge that we have. You have this confidence within yourself that what you know is absolutely true. But where did that come from? Where did that level of confidence come from? How are you able to justify and support your view in relying on that information that you have and proving that this claim of knowledge that you have truly, genuinely corresponds to reality? This, of course, is what epistemology deals with. Now, what is the breakup of the word? Of course, here, as you can read, episteme, which means knowledge, and logia or logos means the study of or the discourse of. It was firstly used in 1847, and then in 1852, there was a book in English written, and it became used in the English language from then onwards. Now, how about in the Islamic world? How about in the Shi'i circles? The first to write on epistemology were those ulama that I have mentioned. Does this mean that prior to 1847 or prior to these great ulama that I mentioned, Allama Tabatabai rahimahullah, Shaheed al-Sadr rahimahullah, prior to them, was there anything written on epistemology? If epistemology is that important, why hasn't it been discussed by our previous scholars and philosophers? What about before these German philosophers using the word epistemology? Here, to answer this, of course, we know that, for example, Immanuel Kant and others, they wrote extensively on the theory of reason and things like that. In the Islamic world, we have abundant material written in the area of aql and ta'aqul, of reason and rationalizing, and also in the area of knowledge and justification of knowledge. But it was never under this independent category. And so what our scholars had to do was to extract these pieces and snippets of theories and information from various sources and compile it into an independent book to become a part of this new science called Nazariyatul Ma'rifah, or Ma'rifat Shanasi, or epistemology. And that's why the outstanding figures who wrote independent books were no earlier than, for example, the likes of Al-Allama and Al-Shahid Al-Sadr. Now, why did Al-Allama Tabatabai write in this area? Why did Al-Shahid Al-Sadr write in this field? What we have always dealt with throughout history is the view that some might hold that why can you so confidently believe that the information that you have, as I just said, the information that you have is true or is reliable? Also, when it comes to, your knowledge that you have, how are you able to present that in an argument that would convince the other person? Let's say that you are relying on a piece of information that you heard from somebody who heard that from somebody else, who heard that from somebody else. And we've all somehow sat in a circle of what they call Chinese whispers. And we know that the information that started in the beginning of the circle is going to be completely different than the information that happens to end up at the end of the circle. So you hearing from this person who's hearing from this person who's hearing from that person, you're relying on your, for example, memory. And that's not really going to give me the certainty that I need that the information that you have is 100% correspondent to the truth or to reality. Especially when we know that sometimes the information that you have is circumstantial. For argument's sake, if we, of course, believe, if we're not one of those conspiracy theorists who believe that maybe no one has ever gone to the moon, it was all in a Hollywood studio. Once upon a time, people would say that it is impossible. We even have some philosophers, they say that this is mahalun kas-su'udi ila al-qamar, that what you're saying, or this theory or this conclusion that you're giving, is as impossible as traveling to the moon. So they, with absolute confidence, believed that it was impossible to travel to the moon. Then all of a sudden that has been debunked, and it is possible to travel to the moon. So that information, that knowledge that that person had, how can we rely on that knowledge that that person had if it was circumstantial, if it was limited? Now, all of a sudden, you're saying that, yeah, I most confidently believe that God exists. Well, where did you get that from? Did you get that from someone who told you, and then someone else told that person, and someone else told that person? Or did you rely on your senses? You can't rely on your senses because your senses make so many mistakes. Your senses make many mistakes. Just when you look at certain things, when you're sitting in a car and you're driving and you look at the other car that's driving next to you, the wheels of that car, it seems like as if it's going backwards, but it's going forwards. Or we used to do this at school a lot, didn't we? When we would say that, you know, I've got a wobbly pen, right? But it's not wobbly at all. It's solid. Or if you were to put a straight pen into a cup of water, for example, you would think that they're not aligned, and it's kind of like become crooked. These kind of examples pretty much say to us that we can't rely on our sensual information. We can't rely on the knowledge that we acquire through our senses. I'm going to give a few more examples, but inshallah, everyone bear with me while we're, you know, developing the arguments. And as I said, you know, I'm assuming that because this is an introduction, I'm assuming that, you know, most of my brothers and sisters don't have prior study or research in detail in this field. So bear with me, inshallah. We've got 4 more sessions to go as well. So inshallah, we're going to benefit. So before I go on, does anyone have any questions or anything? Can we rely on hearsay as elemental in forming and factuality? Yeah, brother Bilal, you can ask. I didn't really understand the question from brother R or sister R Muhsin. Bilal?
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Alaikum salam.
Jazakallah for the introduction so far, especially for someone who's quite new to the subject. Just in regards to when you refer to the title about Islamic epistemology, so when you have the title as Islamic epistemology, and before that you framed that the sources that we'll be using, and it'll be from a specific tradition of the Shia tradition, is that, and then having the title, is there no contradiction because in terms of Sunni and Shia epistemology, the sources may vary, but the methodology is not that different? Or is there a contradiction?
Thank you very much. Very, very good question. But as I said, anyone who wants to comment on the title towards the end. So if that's okay with you, if we could leave it for,
of course, certainly.
If that's okay with you. Yes, our Muhsin. Yes, go ahead, our Muhsin. R. Muhsin? No, of course, brother. Thank you, brother Shuja. Yeah, no, I wouldn't say so. And I think that's, with hearsay, even though it can be a source of knowledge, but it doesn't really give us the solid justification that we are looking for, pretty much. But we're going to explain in detail the different types of knowledge that we have. That's pretty much what we're going to be doing. So when I gave the example of someone saying, that's impossible, that's like going to the moon, that kind of information within that mindset, how reliable was that, or how reliable is that? Or when it comes to sensual knowledge, or knowledge that we acquire through our senses, what we perceive to be this or what we perceive to be that, inshallah, all of that is going to be addressed. So what is epistemology? This is pretty much a common definition of what epistemology is, right? Then I added down the bottom the 4 main areas of what we are going to be discussing. What is masadirul ilm? The sources of knowledge. We can't say that the knowledge that you acquire through your senses is the same level as the knowledge that you acquire through rational thinking. And that can't be on the same level as the knowledge that you acquire from reciting a verse in the Quran. And that can't be the same level as the knowledge that you acquire through a miracle. And I'm sure you've heard of the story of someone by the name of Kazim Karbala'i, who in Qom, well, he's buried in Qom, woke up one day and had memorized the Holy Quran, the whole Quran, all of it, and he was illiterate. And people were questioning, and there were skeptics around and things like that. And they took him to the great Marja Ayatollah Burujurdi, rahimahullah. And Ayatollah Burujurdi confirmed that this illiterate person knows the Holy Quran off all by heart without any prior study. Now, what kind of knowledge is that? Sources of knowledge, value of knowledge. How are you able to justify the knowledge that you have? What about the boundaries of knowledge? What kind of different classifications do we have to knowledge? And the nature of this knowledge. Is it knowledge, this knowledge that you have, is it solid, sound information, or is it fallacious knowledge? Is it mixed with a fallacy? These are, of course, important areas that, inshallah, we will be studying, right? So these are the fundamental questions that we are going to be addressing, inshallah. Okay. Now we've got some enemies. What is the enemy? We've got some cases where we know that these people, they might have initially started off with really, really good intention. And some people who we will be dealing with, or theories that we will be dealing with, originate from Sufism. As you know, Sophia means hikmah. And that's why we say philosophy. Philo means loving or love of. Sophia means wisdom. So philosophy basically means the loving of wisdom. But before philosophers, which means before Socrates, there was a movement called Sophism. And these people, they believed to be wise, and they were really, really good with words. They were very, very good with words, playing around with terms and using them in different ways. And that's why, and two of them, of course, are Protagoras and Gorgias. And that's why now that very word sophism or sophistry has a very negative connotation. And it pretty much means, you know, you're blabbering on about something that doesn't really have a basis. It's a fallacy. The argument that you're using is a fallacious argument. But they were very good when it came to the topic of jidal and arguing. Let me just read a nice story. Now, there was this young boy. I've already mentioned that. There was this young boy who wanted a teacher to come and teach him about the art of debate. And in this, he said to the teacher that if you teach me the art of debates and how I'm able to win over my opponent, I will pay you. Anyway, the course finished, and the youngster refused to pay the teacher. So the teacher took his student to court. And what happened was, the judge said to the student, why aren't you paying the teacher? So then the student said, well, if the court gives a verdict that is in support of me, then how are we going to be able to pay the teacher? So, of course, in this case, he would be innocent. Right? And if the money was to be given in the case of the teacher, then that couldn't happen, because that means that the teacher did not teach him enough for the student to be able to win in the court case. So it's pretty much a loss-loss argument in both cases. And that's when, they realized that this is all a matter of playing around with words. And so neither did the teacher get what it is that he wanted, nor did the student. Of course, the student got what he wanted by not having to pay. And that's why in this kind of argument, you don't really know who's telling, who's speaking or who's saying that which is real or true and who isn't, because it's more a matter of just playing around with words. And that's why in Arabic we say, for Sufism, we say asul fasta'i, but now when we want to say something about an argument that makes absolutely no sense, that is wrong, that is fallacious, we say that's all safsata. So safsata pretty much means it's just a combination of words put together, but doesn't really have any kind of, if we could say, any kind of substance in it, right? Now, do we have any sophists around us today? Sophism has pretty much developed into something else, and it's called skepticism. Skepticism is the modern form of Sophism. Inshallah, we're going to be speaking about skepticism and shakkakiyat and things like that. So please bear with me and these arguments that David Hume put forward. So much so that there are some people, some scholars, some philosophers in the Western world especially, who believe that everything is based on skepticism, that even any knowledge that we have cannot be relied on, even our own knowledge of our own self. And this has gone to some who are extreme skeptics, and they genuinely believe that they might not really even exist, and that they are a figment of imagination, or that they are a part of a dream of an alien from another planet. Now, these are really things that are being said. I don't know if we have any people who know Dr. Seuss and that very famous cartoon, Horton Hears a Who. That's going to be your homework, to watch Horton Hears a Who, and tell me what I mean by this particular cartoon and how relevant that is to skepticism. And of course, an agnostic is pretty much a skeptic. Agnosticism is basically someone saying that, well, I can't say that God does exist because I don't really know, because I can't really rely on the knowledge that I have, nor can I say God doesn't exist because, you know, I don't really know if what I am rejecting or denying really is the case, because later on I could be proven wrong. So that's what an agnostic is. An agnostic is a skeptic, right? And of course, people who are relativists are also going to be pretty much within the boundaries of skepticism, because they don't believe in absolute knowledge, right? Now here, relativity, we're not talking about relativity, the theory of relativity, Einstein and that. We're talking about relativity as in relative and nisbi, in opposite to al-mutlaq, or the absolute. And pluralism, especially religious pluralism, is founded in this. It says you can't somehow claim to have absolute knowledge because you can be proven wrong. And therefore, it's unrealistic for you to be 100% confident in the knowledge that you have. And that's, of course, what religious pluralists say. Religious pluralists say, yeah, well, you know, Muslim, you're right. Christian, you're also right. Hindu, you're also right. And, you know, we can't say that I earn or I own absolute validity as far as my knowledge is concerned, because I could be proven otherwise. Yeah, we've already mentioned this. So yeah, these are some of the terms that we're going to be using, inshallah, especially relativism and skepticism. You know, I won't be dealing very much with perspectivism and objectivism and subjectivism. I'm not going to be touching on those topics very much, but our main focus will be on the theory of nisbiyya, of relativism, and shakakiyya, skepticism, inshallah. And of course, the theory of truth and how truth corresponds to reality and where beliefs stand. I wanted to share a little clip.
By Rumi. Some elephant.
Do we have sound? Can all of you hear?
I can share, yes.
Yeah, okay. Alhamdulillah.
Elephant in the Dark by Rumi. Some Hindus have an elephant to show. No one here has ever seen an elephant. They bring it at night to a dark room. One by one, we go in the dark and come out, saying how we experience the animal. One of us happens to touch the trunk, a water pipe kind of creature. Another, the ear, very strong, always moving back and forth. Then another, the leg. Find it still, like a column on a temple. Another touches the curved back, a leathery throne. Another, the cleverest, feels the tusk, a rounded sword made of porcelain. Yeah, he's proud of his description. Each of us touches one place and understands the whole in that way. Palm and the fingers feeling in the dark, or how the senses explore the reality of the elephant. If each of us held a candle there, and if we went in together, we could see it.
Yes, that's right. The sound wasn't that good, but point made was that this is a very famous parable that is usually used, originated as a story in Jalaluddin Rumi's Mathnawi. And it's pretty much saying that, you know, what portion of reality do we really have? You know, you're walking into a dark room and you have no idea what's in the dark room. You touch the trunk and you think, oh, it's a snake. Someone else touches the leg and they say, oh, it's a tree trunk. Someone else touches the tail and says something else. Someone else touches the ear and says something else. And then the light is turned on and everyone realizes that they were all wrong. And it's an elephant. So you're saying that it's Vishnu, someone is saying that it's Yahweh, someone is saying that it's Allah, someone is saying that it is Jesus, someone else, I don't know what other names of God, Ahura Mazda, someone else is saying that it's Ahriman, etc., etc. And then when we face the reality, we realize that all of us were wrong and there was no God, or all of us were wrong and there was some other God that none of us had come to realize, because all of us were relying on knowledge that we had that was limited, and also very prone to error because of the many mistakes in senses that we make, because of the limitations in knowledge that we have. You know, the Quran says, وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. We only have a small portion of knowledge that we have. So how are we able to, you know, so confidently believe that, you know, I am following the haqq and I am following the truth, and I the knowledge that I have is correct knowledge, and things like that. So, you know, this is all a quick introduction, inshallah, to what it is that we are going to be tackling and addressing in this course. And I think I've come to an end, and we will open up for questions and answers. This is my email, and this is my number. You are able to contact me if you have any questions or comments or anything of that sort. And yeah, now we can address questions, or if anyone has anything to say, inshallah. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi tahirin. You can turn on your microphone if you want to, if anyone has anything to say.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Sheikh.
Alaikum salam, Brother Abbas.
First and foremost, thank you so much for this. Alhamdulillah, I think it's very, very needed. In an earlier slide near the beginning, we mentioned the sources of epistemology, or sources of knowledge. Forgive my my language; it might not be very technical.
No, I haven't mentioned sources of knowledge yet. I've mentioned that we are going to be discussing sources of knowledge, but I haven't mentioned what these sources are yet. Yeah.
Okay. I saw a slide that mentioned, you know, Quran, Sunnah, Aql, and Ijma. I think it was in what our
Sources of legislation. Sources of legislation.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Then my question may be premature.
Okay.
But
can I just explain very quickly? So just to remove the probably confusion, I'm sorry about that. We have when I was discussing the different trends that we have within the Shi'i tradition, like the Akhbari trend, the Usuli trend, the Tafkiki trend, and how we can address these issues epistemologically, I said one main problem that is put forward in these trends is either being hostile to the intellects or to rational discussions, or being extremely friendly. So, which is why some believe, as far as sources of legislation is concerned, aql has no role. Sources of legislation is, what do you use as a source for legislating a law in Islamic Sharia? So Quran, Sunnah, Aql, Ijma, for example. The Sunnis, for example, they have istihsan and qiyas, for example. You know, as for sources of knowledge in epistemology, that will be in our next presentation. I haven't mentioned what our sources of knowledge are, but I did say that, you know, we've got our senses, we've got our reason, we've got revelation, and we've got that example that I gave of Karbala'i, Kazim Karbala'i, that person who, you know, one day woke up, memorized the Quran. That can't be on the same level of knowledge as, for example, someone who reads a book, right? So, but I haven't spoken about what these sources of knowledge are, which inshallah we will be taking then. So hopefully that kind of like clarifies the difference between these.
Yes, Alhamdulillah. Ahsan. Thank you.
R. Muhsin, please go ahead.
Yeah, Mulana, thank you for this lovely course.
Oh, Sayyid Rifat, how are you?
Good, I'm fine, Mulana. I've been hearing you a lot on many occasions on TV. So my point is, all this what we need from from any epistemological studies is it should be related to the development of ourselves, and the development of ourselves is the faith that we carry. And I like the title of the course, the epistemology in Islamic world. And Islamic world has so much to offer for faith, but on the faith is very, very, what do you call, abstract. It is just the personal experience. And then, yes, these courses are very helpful in building your faith, but you can't share it. You can't convert into factuality that it becomes universal. Sorry, Malan, this is something that I have been thinking about, and I thought I should just mention it. What do you think?
Thank you. Well, hopefully, through developing these kind of topics, we will be able to, you know, bring it down to such a level where the common masses are able to somehow understand them. I think one of the things that we in the Muslim world, we haven't been very much successful in doing is making these kind of topics accessible to the general public. When it comes to simplifying texts, I think we have a problem. When it comes to conveying these kind of deep theories, I think we have a methodological problem. So hopefully, inshallah, through the efforts of learning and further studying these topics, we will be able to, you know, if we could say in a polite way, dumb it all down in such a way where it becomes, you know, even for young children, they tend to, you know, have probably some kind of interest in these areas, you know, to know the difference between skepticism and real knowledge, and to understand where all of these arguments fall, and things like that, inshallah. Brother Bilal?
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. I do believe, because my question relates to this, I know you didn't go into detail on it, as you've mentioned, you're going to do that later, but I do remember seeing a slide that was titled Sources of Knowledge. And I had a question just stemming from there, that we have sources of knowledge, which inshallah we'll go into later, but is there do we have a framework or a branch of knowledge about what is the requisite in terms of somebody being able to acquire knowledge, who knowledge is given to and who it's taken from?
Yeah.
Because you spoke about intellect, And then you spoke about the sources of deriving knowledge and rulings. And if the intellect is shaped and formed in a certain way, so for example, if somebody's been raised in a system of study, education, and tarbiyah, which is more inclined towards criticism and skepticism, and then they go to the Quran, they're going to have a very different approach and understanding of the Quran and how they relate to it than somebody who's been raised within the Islamic framework and they understand and approach the Quran in a very different way. So is this something that we should actually be a branch of knowledge that's alongside epistemology, something that precedes it, or is it part of this actual discussion in itself?
So I think within what you are mentioning is something along the lines of, do we have some kind of social determinism or what we call jabr ijtima'i as far as the overall scheme of our thought process? And does the environment that we grow up in, or as you said, the tarbiyah, influence our style of thinking? That's exactly what epistemology is all about, and how we are able to distance ourselves from this assumption that you are kind of like coerced into thinking along these lines because of the environment that you grew up in. You were nurtured into this kind of having this kind of mentality, and therefore, you know, there's pretty much nothing that you are able to do about it. Well, in general, that might be the case because most people don't, you know, go beyond the limits of wanting to find with verification the information that they need to rely on. But I think that's the whole argument here, isn't it? That how are we able to, you know, use epistemic thought in justification of theories, and what can be done in order for us to develop that in such a way that will align ourselves to the haqq, to the truth. Now, when I say haqq here, I'm not talking about Imam Ali salamullahi alayhi, aliyun ma'al haqq wal haqqu ma'a Ali. Ultimately, that's what we want, isn't it? We want to know, we want to make sure that we follow the true, genuine Islam. And as I put forward, I have the strong belief that it is all cohesively together, all of these things. But here we're talking about haqq as far as its correspondence to reality, al-mutabaqa lil-waqa, how this information that I have corresponds to reality, that this is genuinely what it really is. Now, this reality that we're talking about is not only reality on a creational, existential level, but also on a divine level as well, as far as our understanding of what it is that Almighty God wants from us. And that's why I think the Islamic epistemology stands out in this particular level. And I think, Brother Bilal, it was you that mentioned this whole issue of Islamic epistemology, or maybe even if we should be calling it Shi'i Islamic epistemology. You know, that's also something arguable, because we do know that Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and the Imams and the Shi'i tradition has a lot to offer, not only within the field of rational sciences, but in this field in particular. And it would be, you know, methodologically different to other trends as well. Brother,
That was very helpful, Sheikh. Thank you. And sorry, just as a kind of addendum on that, on the Islamic epistemology title, that is something that interests me because I think one of the things that I found to be whenever I've experienced the kind of coming together of different schools of thought and different traditions towards either finding harmony and a coexistence, I've always found those to be the most beautiful and enriching kind of experiences to learn and deepen my understanding. And so that's why I also wanted to understand, as we go through this course, where would the major differences be that would pertain to something being exclusively a Shia epistemological method, and where it would actually incorporate and align with being a universal Islamic epistemological method. And if at times you could kind of touch on that, I'd be really appreciative and grateful.
Certainly will,
Jazakallah.
inshallah. Thank you, brother. Brother Muhammad Mazhari, Salam Sheikh, isn't relativism effectively the best humans can ever achieve in absence of full 100% knowledge, which is with God? That itself is relativism. So that's what we're going to be dealing with, you know. So I think what you're saying is that, you know, we can only deal with what it is that we have, but we're never going to get 100% knowledge. That's relativism itself, you know. So, well, the 100% knowledge that I claim to have isn't really 100% knowledge. In fact, it's less than 100% knowledge. So it's not really something that I can 100% rely on. So I think that's pretty much exactly what it is that we're dealing with. So your question sums up a lot of what it is that we're going to be addressing in the forthcoming sessions that we're going to have. So hold on to that question that you have. It's a fundamental question. And towards the third or fourth session, if this hasn't been addressed, then bring it up again so we can deal with it systematically, inshallah, Brother Muhammad. Anyone else has any questions or any comments that they would like to add? As I said, email me if you want to receive some reading material, or you can message me and I'll email it to you. I think Brother Muhammad is going to arrange a Telegram group for any kind of discussions or anything that's needed if you would like to join. And of course, if you have any technical questions or anything to do with whatever it may be, then please correspond with Brother Muhammad, who's on behalf of AIM managing the course. And if nobody else has any more questions.
Sorry, Sheikh, if I may, please.
Sure.
You mentioned that this branch of knowledge was developed in Europe, and you gave the timeline for it as well. And then after that, it grew in the Islamic tradition. Now, when it came to be in the Islamic tradition, was this the realization that, okay, this is a branch of knowledge that has been formed into a kind of that's been given a framework, and it was thought that actually this is something helpful, and we can just from our own tradition take out, you know, from various sources and pool it together and call it epistemology? Or was it done because there was a sense that, okay, this is something from the West that may impose on us, and we need to do it as a rebuttal or as a safeguard?
Yeah, I completely understand what you're asking, and it really is a good question, because I think sometimes we have this kind of issue where we only come up with things when we want to refute or in the form of rebuttal, but that wouldn't be in the case of epistemology. It's pretty much a development based on needs, very similar to ilm usul al-fiqh. Ilm usul al-fiqh in the Shi'i world does not precede ilm usul al-fiqh in the Sunni world, because until the commencing of the major ghaiba of our Imam Ajalallah Ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif, we didn't need usul al-fiqh, because we had direct accessibility to the Ma'sumin alayhim salam. So there wasn't any need for that. But then later on that developed. So I would say, in answering to your question, it is a development of a science based on the need of addressing it independently. There's a very famous hadith attributed to Imam Ali alayhi salam, where Imam Ali, he says, al-ilmu nuqta. Ilm is one dot. Kassaruhul jahilun. That ignorant people broke up and, dissected. So, broke up, pretty much that we have this knowledge, and then it expanding and expanding and expanding based on, things that we don't know, for the sake of, classifying each one within its particular classification. Yeah. If nobody else has any questions or any comments, I'll hand the microphone back to Brother Muhammad, or shall we just exit?